Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sri Yoga's session on May 2nd, second session today. And I'm really excited to have this session with the three experts in this field, Dr. Ramesh Deshpande, Dr. Anil Bhate, and also Dr. Vinod Deshmukh. And they have experience and knowledge in the area of vipassana from different perspectives. They have attended the vipassana session and also analyze what exactly happens in your brain when you are doing the vipassana. And so it will be and many of you have already watched that video, the first video that was Dr. Anil Bhate's presentation on his experience, and he has met Dr. Goenka, Mr. Goenka in person. So with all that, and you probably know, both all these three speakers. Ramesh Deshpande has been very active in Washington D.C. area in many different fields, but including yoga and in the yoga philosophy, and also overall the Sewa International. He's participating and helping in that area. And Dr. Anil Bhate, he has been practicing Vipassana for more than 45 years now. And he is the one that has really knows the actual experience of Vipassana, and also he has the experience of Shaktipat. And Dr. Deshmukh, most all of you know, and he's our brain behind the model of the brain. And so you will know more about what is Vipassana and his views on what exactly happens in the brain. So with all that introduction, first Mr. Ramesh Deshpande is going to start. So you can share the screen, and again, please keep your phones mute. And if needed, I will mute, I will take action if needed. So thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Ramesh.
Yeah. Slideshow, right?
Yes.
From beginning. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I should start thanking Sri, Dr. Bhate and Dr. Deshmukh for giving this opportunity to me to share my experience with Vipassana. I attended this 10-day course in Vipassana at Shelburne Falls Center, Vipassana Center in Massachusetts State in 2005. So it is nearly 16 years. I am practicing not very regularly, from time to time, Vipassana meditation, and it had great benefit. We talk great beneficial effect. I'll talk to you as we go along. We were actually, before going for Vipassana meditation, I was doing yoga, pranayama, yogasana, meditation, along with Mr. Rajgurunagar. Many of you have been knowing him. He is running a Life in Yoga Foundation here. We went together with much hesitation, not knowing what exactly we had to go through. We had just heard that we had to observe silence for 10 days, no telephone, no newspaper, no radio, no TV, no talking to each other, not even looking at each other. I mean, no expression, and except talking to teacher once in a way. So there was a lot of excitement, a lot of tension in going there, but it was worthwhile going there. The meditation technique, Vipassana was really taught by, first practice, experience, and then taught by Gautam Buddha to all his disciples. Actually, Gautam Buddha meditated on Vipassana technique in the beginning for continuous 48 days in one place. And then he believed that he understood the cure for all suffering and sorrow. And he has become Buddha after that. What were the four truths he realized. He said, all life is full of suffering, pain, and sorrow. I mean, because we have expectations for everything, and those expectations don't get fulfilled. People feel sorry, there are diseases, there is suffering, there is pain. And the cause of this suffering is desire for things, expectations that are really illusions, such as I want to be wealthy, I want to be powerful, I must have long life. There is a fear of death, the fear about you are worried about your children, your family, and your job and your status. So a lot of worries. So the only cure for this suffering, according to Buddha, is to overcome desire. And the way to overcome this desire, Gautam Buddha said there is a eightfold path. What is the eightfold path? Right views, that you should have right views, right aspirations, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right contemplation. These are the eight speeches, eightfold path which Gautam Buddha told his disciples. And the final goal of Buddhism is nirvana. And we are familiar with nirvana. Even Vedanta philosophy talks about nirvana. Whether it is Sankhya Yoga or it is Vedanta, they all aim at nirvana, union with the universe, universal energy, and release from the cycle of rebirth. That's the concept of nirvana. And Buddhism accepts that principle. See, Buddhism and Hinduism agree on karma, they agree on dharma, they agree on moksha concept, they agree on reincarnation. And but they are different in one respect. And that may be probably because of the social tensions at that time. See, Buddhism rejects priests of Hinduism, priests and gurus, they don't believe. They say we don't need intermediary between us and nirvana. Today, they don't want formal rituals. This is rituals are meaningless. If you focus on a big picture, you don't have to get engaged and spend time and resources on rituals. They also don't believe in caste system. All human beings are equal. In fact, all life is equal. So the question of caste system is, it was irrelevant for Gautam Buddha. And he said this can be done. He urged people to seek this enlightenment. If you have to understand this nature, be one with the nature, Gautam Buddha thought that you had to get enlightened. And this enlightenment can be done through meditation. And Vipassana is the technique of meditation that Gautam Buddha. So there is a big process in this, how this technique evolved. Now before I say anything further, I must acknowledge that whatever I say is advocated by Gautam Buddha, by him, by chain of teachers who kept it alive through millennia. And late Mr. S.N. Goenka, industrialist and former leader of Indian community in Burma, he brought this technique to India. Although Buddha was in India and Buddhism started in India, slowly it reduced its importance until recently, and Hinduism came back, and Buddhism got exported to many other countries, neighboring countries, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, all these East Asian countries. And so India lost its technique. So it was S.N. Goenka, he brought this technique. When he came to India, he also realized the importance of this. He used to suffering from enormous headache, and he went all over the world to get treatment. It did not suffice. Then his guru, he taught him this Vipassana technique, and he got rid of this headache. And he came to India and he started teaching. Initially, he had only in his small room, 10 or 15 people will come and attend this. Later on, thousands of people, but he spread it all over India, not only all over India, in many other countries. Now, worldwide, there are 214 main centers which conduct these 10-day programs, and there are 140 centers, non-centers, but there are facilities to learn and practice Vipassana. They're all over the world, Africa, Asia, Europe, and other countries. In North America alone, there are 18 centers. 18 centers. Nearest one is one in Delaware. I went to the one in Massachusetts. So now, William Hart has written documented Vipassana meditation technique in English. That book is very good. It is available on Amazon. You can just download it for $5 or $6. Very valuable document. Now, what is Vipassana technique?
Ramesh, there is a comment that if you can speak a little bit louder or maybe
Okay.
closer to the mic.
All right. Sorry. So let us go to this. So it is Vipassana is a meditation technique. It is to experience liberation. Liberation here means a freedom from all conditioning of body, all mind and mind. Vipassana means see things as they really are. That's the insight in Pali. It is a way of self-transformation through self-observation. So let us remember one basic fundamental concept of Vipassana. It is self-observation. You have to observe yourself. And through self-observation, you transform yourself. And there are three stages in one understanding of Vipassana and progress toward liberty. One is to learn the technique well, how it is done, why it is done, to understand it. And today's session and our first session, which Dr. Bhate took, explain what Vipassana is about. I may recapitulate that a bit, but then I will come to the point that what kind of transformation I experience. Second one is once you learn the technique, and that one does in 10-day course, and 10-day course is absolutely essential. It cannot be done by reading books or ad hoc practicing. You have to do that rigorous program of 10 days. We'll come to that. And third one is, so once you learn that, then you practice the technique and then penetrate that, observe the sensation that this training creates and get rid of the impurities in your mind and body. All kinds of desires, all kinds of expectations, one should go and reach a stage where liberation, free from all worry, free from all expectations, and you try to become one with the nature. You see, in final analysis, nirvana is pursued both by Vipassana technique and as well as Vedanta. We have heard this before. So nirvana is not just a state one goes to after death. Very important, this principle. This is so many times we say we follow a lot of bhakti yoga techniques, jnana yoga techniques, raja yoga techniques, karma yoga. We talk about it. All this is important, but it is not that you will get only after death. That you will not know. There will be no rebirth, or that is the birth cycle will break, and that one will go to nirvana. No, one has to do during this life. In simple terms, nirvana is kind of experience to be achieved during this life, and it is beyond the entire field of matter, the entire field of mind. That is neither this world nor the next world, or another world, or neither both. So now, what is the basic concept we talked about? Was the basic preconception is that there is self, and the belief is that I am the center of the universe. We talked about it. This is my house, my job, my children, my wife. You think everything mine. So because the self-consciousness or self-obsession or egoism, as Gautam Buddha says, leads to all suffering and unhappiness, which one experiences moment to moment. So Vipassana meditation is a way to liberate oneself from this self-obsession without going into self-denial. Okay, Vipassana doesn't expect you to deny all that is going on around you. Observe it, be in it, but be detached from that obsession. So don't do self-denial, don't do self-reparation, but at the same time be aware that you are not self, you are one with this whole universal. So it helps one to experience the transitory nature of body and mind, shatter the illusion of impermanence, shatter the illusion of permanence, that we are permanent. So also the illusion of I. I think you have heard before. They said one should forget I, ego, because of egos. So Vedanta says that, Vipassana also says. So getting this rid of I is one of the important, is the objective of Vipassana. So experience the reality or the impermanence. Buddha calls it anikka in Pali, but it is mean anit. So we are not permanent as a body, but we are permanent as energy. We are part with one of energy. So Gautam Buddha, I can give we talked about it. Next slide. That right understanding from own experience, not intellectual or emotionally, but actually experience it. Like right understanding of oneself, that proceeds to right thought, from right thought to right speech, from right speech to right action to right livelihood to right effort to right awareness to right concentration, right concentration to right wisdom, and right wisdom to right liberation, which leads to harmony and peace. And that is what we like in our life. We like in what most human beings like in life is harmony and happiness. And if one has to get rid of that unhappiness, Gautama Buddha says that Vipassana meditation is a reliable technique. Now there are 3 steps. The first step is refrain from any those 10-day course while you are doing Vipassana. Refrain from any action, physical or vocal, such as reading, writing, suspend any religious or other practices. We just talked about it. Follow basic code of morality, including celibacy. Abstain from consuming alcohol or any intoxicant. Maintain complete silence. No phone, no radio, no TV, no talking or even gesture. Because you have to calm down once your mind. So we have to avoid all these things. Uh, this helps to eliminate gradually all negative. So this is the essential first 3.5 days in the 10-day course. First 3.5 days are devoted to this practice of living moral life. Of course, it is continuous moral life and exercising mental concentration. And mental concentration is preparatory Vipassana proper. How it is done? One important point: it is not a pranayama, which commonly understood. There is no regulation of breath. You only observe breath. That is, as it naturally, respiration comes in, goes out. Breath comes in, goes out. So you observe below the nose and above the lips, there is a little well there. So slowly you focus on that. In that, 2 things happen. The mind becomes calmer day by day. Other thoughts stop coming in, because in the beginning, first 2-3 days, everything while you are sitting there comfortably on the floor, or if you are not able to sit on the floor, one can sit in the chair. And these 2 or 3 days of concentration, just to concentrate mind at one single focal point, which I just said, below the nose and the second, once this is done, the second stage is you move that awareness from top to bottom slowly. Take it from, become aware of your existence, move that awareness. At that time, you forget even your respiration because you are focusing on the awareness. And then your awareness to the tip of your fingers, both hands, to the tip of your toes, from top to bottom. So the entire awareness will start keeping. That really starts once you are able to calm down the mind and focus on that awareness. Then only this process is possible. And in third stage, you intensify this process, going beyond this, experience this process and experience one's own reality by systematic and dispassionate observation within oneself, which is ever-changing mind matter phenomena and manifesting itself as sensation. So you feel as you focus on the sensation and you move these sensations, the third process is that this deep observation of yourself helps you to eliminate all negative impurities, even at cell. In fact, they say there are some people who do, you do 10-day program. There are also programs available for 30 days, 60 days, and there are people who do like 90 days. And there are separate caves to do that. Even here now in Massachusetts State Center, they have created several caves that if those who want to do meditation for 60 days, they can stay there 60 days and do meditation.
Just
The
one
whole
comment.
idea.
Just
Yeah.
one comment. Can
Yeah.
you go, which slide are you on? Is that?
Yeah. Slide. I'll go there. Sorry. Step 1 we talked about. Step 2 we talked about. Step 3, going beyond this, experiencing one's own reality by systematic and dispassionate observation within oneself of ever-changing mind matter phenomena manifesting itself as sensation. So, according to Gautam Buddha, Vipassana is self-purification by self-observation. Briefly, to summarize, step 1, try to focus your mind at a single point, focal point, uh, uh, where you have an awareness. The second stage, you move this awareness across the body very slowly. Even there are people who do it cell by cell. They go by little cell by area or to the entire body. And in third stage, that is the third stage, the process is deepened to eliminate all impurities, mental or body level impurities as you experience. You get rid of them, you see. And so that is, so ultimately what happens, this awareness takes you to equanimity and they go together. Both are essential for liberation or nirvana. Understanding one's own nature, direct experience of truth within oneself. This is very important slide. And the direct experience of truth within oneself is critical. I think Dr. Deshmukh and Dr. Bhate are going to explain this process further. Dr. Deshmukh, who is a neurologist, will see from neurological angle how these changes really happen, in technical terms. So get rid of past reactions. Do not admit new reactions. If one observes change, it would be either mental or physical, may function independently, but body and mind, they have interrelationship. So these reactions, one has to slowly get over. The goal is to penetrate to the ultimate truth, that is, use Vipassana meditation to the depth of one's reality. And that is where, according to Gautam Buddha, one brings real. And you really experience, as one goes from 6 days, 7 day, 8 day, you really start experiencing moments of total reality, realization. In fact, if I can say, and Dr. Bhate extra confirmed, in this process, as it deepens, one can even forget the boundaries of gross body. One does not experience even grossness. And I think once you come back again to the normal life, you realize how peaceful that moment was. So I think, and the longer that reality or recognition is there, probably that is what nirvana stage is there. So so we were there for 10 days. It was a wonderful experience, I tell you. That is, it was transformation for me. When I came out, you will not believe, I used to, I don't say what I left is bad in it per se. You see, I stopped taking alcohol I used to drink a lot. I used to travel all over the world, 30. And in many countries where people drink a lot, like China, Russia, and Philippines, and Korea, and all these people, without drink, there are no lunch or there are no dinner. I used to take a lot of non-veg, all kinds of meat. Although I'm born in a vegetarian family, as you travel internationally, I lost that value and I've been eating. As I came from, I felt that I don't need this. So I stopped taking alcohol in 2005. I'm not touched since. I stopped taking meat. I don't say these are bad. That's a different issue altogether. I felt I don't need this. And third one, and very important is, moment you have any kind of stress, just sit down. It doesn't matter. It has to be hours. Follow this Vipassana technique to calm down your mind. Spend few moments. It is a very big reliever of tension. Really. The ultimate goal is nirvana. But in our day-to-day life, which you cannot leave, you have to do your normal activities, which are dictated by body and mind and even intellectually. So we keep on doing. The Those people who are practicing pranayama, yoga, Vedanta philosophy, we know that we are going for Aham Brahmasmi. And you see, Aham Brahmasmi, as I told, Aham, I asked Swami Chinmayanandaji once, I had an opportunity to be with one of his evening prasad. So I asked Swamiji, when do we forget I? Swami said, never. But think about the quality of I. The quality of I changes from selfish quality to Brahmasmi quality. I think Vipassana approach, although people say Buddhism is different from Hinduism, and we just said that in many respects they are similar. But in the concept of nirvana as per Vedanta, and the concept of nirvana as per Vipassana in Buddhism, in my view, they are one of the same, and one can experience that through Vipassana. So, also Vipassana, as I said, leads to renunciation. You feel like getting rid of things you don't need. Which is also a critical element of Vedanta.
It's about 8:31.
Yeah, I will finish it. Yeah. The underlying concept is that one should make his or her mind free of selfish ego, drop the idea of one's little personal self, give up all worries, anxieties, fears, and agitations pertaining to personal self. And this renunciation is practiced in two ways: negation of little self and awareness of reality. Both these objectives are served by Vipassana. So it takes you to higher spiritual practice with no dependence on gurus, deities. In Buddhism, there are no, you don't have to do it. You trust yourself and do it. No expectations of this life or next life. It is a scientific technique. Sorry. It is a scientific technique to exhaust all thoughts and desires and seek one's real self. Goals, by and large, are same as many other techniques of meditation. Like we do Om, mantra-based meditation, Kundalini awakening, transcendental meditation, mindfulness. Actually, mindfulness, which is talked about a lot in these days, is 100% derived from Vipassana, and it is acknowledged in the literature. So, Vipassana is a technique worth experiencing, worth practicing, according to me. It does not conflict with anything else. It does not conflict with Hinduism, Hindu principles, Buddhism, Vedanta, or anything. In fact, it leads you to those objectives of Vedanta. One thing one must remember, and Goenkaji used to tell this repeatedly, and Dr. Bhate will confirm: do not mix Vipassana with other methods of meditation. Do not think of Om. Do not think of your favorite deity while you are doing Vipassana. Vipassana, you have to trust yourself to liberate yourself. And so do not mix Vipassana technique with other. And as I said in the last bullet, that there is a powerful way to reach Turiya. Thoughts are eradicated, body, mind, and intellect get extinct, and self reveals by itself. I think I should stop here. We can, Dr. Bhate and Dr. Deshmukh have a lot to say on this, and we can deal with other things and question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh ji.
Let me get up.
I think the questions we can just postpone it to the end.
Yeah.
And I think let's continue with Dr. Bhate. Go ahead, Dr. Bhate.
In my talk on Vipassana, which I gave on April 4th, one aspect I did not mention, which I need to mention, that Vipassana is a group practice. Goenka Guruji always claimed that sitting together in a group doing Vipassana practice helps. And hence, Vipassana by nature is a group practice. You see that now? I'm on slide 2.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the first slide that you can see. Let me close mine. Yeah. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Yeah, this is what I said, that Vipassana is essentially a group practice. And the reason is that when people are sitting together and meditating together, everybody's vibrations create a conducive atmosphere, which is felt by all the people in the group. And also there is a process which is called Metta Bhavana, which I explained in my previous talk. And that is about transmitting good wishes for well-being and spiritual progress to everybody. Next slide, please. Another point which was raised by Rameshji himself after my talk on April 4th, that I did not explain much about the transition from Anapana to Vipassana. In Anapana, we focus attention on breath. And in Vipassana, we focus attention part by part on the body, on the sensations within the body. So the transition happens when we focus our attention, change the focus from breath to the inside of the nostrils and starts getting a feel of the sensations that are produced by incoming air and outgoing air, which is flowing through the nostrils on the inner wall of the nostrils. And that is a transition from Anapana to Vipassana. That is how you go from focusing on breath to focusing on the body sensations. And then you move your attention to the top of the head and keep going slowly downwards up to feet and back from feet up to head. And that is Vipassana. Next slide, please. So the ultimate goal, and here I'm giving exact translation of a statement made in Majjhima Nikaya Sutta. This is a collection of formulas. Sutta is a formula or aphorism, that's a better word. And there are plenty of them. And Majjhima Nikaya, because some of the aphorisms are long and some are very short. And then some are in the middle. So Majjhima Nikaya is a collection of aphorisms which are middle length articles. And the MN 73, one of the suttas in Majjhima Nikaya, the translation is as given here. Through the ending of the mental fermentations, one remains in the fermentation-free awareness release and discernment release, having known and made them manifest for oneself right here and now. I think this is exactly was explained in detail by Rameshji just before that. And so that is the ultimate goal of Vipassana, which is the ultimate goal of the entire Buddhist practice, as a matter of fact. Next slide, please. I personally did Vipassana since 1973 when I was teaching in IIT Powai, Bombay, and went on doing it. After 5 years, I decided to try another technique apart from Vipassana, which was Shaktipat, and that was in the tradition of Kashmir Shaivism. as started by late Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj. That's a very big name in Kashi, Varanasi. And that involves Kundalini Jagruti. So I went into that. However, I did not give up Vipassana. I continued with Vipassana and also had Shaktipat. So I tried both the practices simultaneously, of course, keeping them separate. At one time, when I'm doing Vipassana, I'm with Vipassana. When I'm with Kundalini Jagruti, I'm with Kundalini Jagruti. I don't mix up. But keeping them separate, it is possible to try to practice both of them together. And I have done that since 1978 until today. And then this Kashmir Shaivism, Kundalini Jagruti, has taken me into trance. I've been able to go into a state which is totally thoughtless condition. I am able to transcend my own mind-body complex and go into a trance. I am capable of going into samadhi, and I have experienced samadhi. However, I never gave up vipassana because in my experience, both these techniques help each other. So vipassana, in my opinion, is a necessary preparation as a prerequisite. I call it purvabhyas, which is totally thoughtless condition. I am able to transcend my own mind-body complex and go into a trance. I am capable of going into samadhi, and I have experienced samadhi. However, I never gave up vipassana because in my experience, both these techniques help each other. So vipassana, in my opinion, is a necessary preparation as a prerequisite. I call it purvabhyas before one takes Shaktipat. So this has been my story, and I don't want to take more time. I want to give the rest of the time to Dr. Vinod. So I want to stop here. If there are any questions, we will take them up in question and answer sessions. Thank you. Bye-bye. Dr. Vinod, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, I feel very happy and thankful for having this opportunity to share my ideas and experience and also understanding of Vipassana as well as Samatha and meditation and Nirvana. So I'll share some of the ideas, and especially from the point of view of neuroscience. This was a simple event that occurred, and I took this photograph. I was driving the car, and this is on an 8-lane highway. And these two guys stopped all traffic to let this family of geese cross the road. And it was an amazing sight. I just loved it. I captured the moment. It was unbelievable, unforgettable moment. But here I want to point out to you that I want you to look at each person in this scene and look at their attention and the vector of attention or the direction of attention. For instance, this person is not only looking at the whole family, but also making sure that no cars are crossing. This person is making sure that the cars are not anyway backing up or anything coming from the other side. The mother goose is leading the way and crossing as fast as she can safely. All the 6 kids are behind her. The youngest one is probably the last one. And the father goose is following and making sure everybody is going safely. And he is looking at all the kids and the family ahead. So each living being has a direction of attention, what is called attentional vector, and their mindset, what is going on in their mind at this particular moment, depends on that attentional vector. Attention can be thought out as attentional vector and attentional matrix. Attentional matrix is like the source of attention, and attentional vector is from one point A to point B. The point A then becomes the source, and the point B becomes the target. And this attention creates the duality, subject-object duality. And we will come to that more. I think enough has been said about mindfulness by both the speakers before. So I'll share this slide with everybody. I don't need to go through all this. But Vipassana has also been called insight, mindfulness, attentiveness, presence of mind. And this is by a famous book by Gunaratana, Mindfulness in Plain English. He clearly gives 10 different features of Vipassana. It is pre-symbolic, pre-speech, pre-thought. It is interlocked with reality, oneness, wholeness. It reflects exactly what is happening now, reality as it is in the present moment. It is non-judgmental observation. So your mind is fresh, unbiased look. It is impartial watchfulness, just witnessing without interfering. Non-conceptual bare awareness, awareness itself, or contentless awareness, contentless consciousness, or non-dual consciousness. Present moment awareness, non-egoistic alertness, selfless, loving attentiveness, awareness of change, itself remaining unchanged, and participatory observation. One is part of the whole scene, whole landscape, whatever is happening at this moment. It is holistic, global perception. Now, reality is very interesting in the sense that sometimes we have to figure out what is happening at this moment. For instance, we need to separate the foreground from background. In this picture, you will see that it is confusing. You don't know what is foreground and what is background. But if you look at this closely, you see a Dalmatian dog here. And of course, there is a lot of background which is kind of hides that dog. But attention separation, foregrounds from background to identify a name, an object, or a person. So there is conscious emergence of experience and also emergence, and consciously predicting and managing what is out there in the unknown world. There is always unknown, there is always uncertainty till we figure out and be with the reality as it is. There are also what are called ambiguous figures. Ambiguous figures, this is a well-known example of whether this is a young girl or an old woman. And both are present in this reality. So it entirely depends on our perspective, how we look at it. For instance, if you look at this as forehead, the nose, the chin, and the neck, a sort of necklace, and these hair and the ear, that becomes the young girl. But if you look that this is forehead, this is nose, this is upper lip, this is mouth, this is chin, then this becomes the old woman. So it entirely depends on our perspective. The point is that we create our experience as we are experiencing. We create the reality that we experience. So our perspective is extremely important. There is a famous Sanskrit shloka when Hanuman says to Sri Rama, Deha bhavena dasvasmi, jiva bhavena tvadamshakaha, atma bhavena tvamevaham, iti me nishyatamatihi. He says that when I think that I'm the physical body, then I'm your servant. When I think that I'm a living being, then I'm a small part of you. And when I have the feeling of being the Atman itself or the Brahman, then I'm you. And this is my firm conviction. Now, this is what happens in the brain. It's interesting that there are no images, there are no words, there are no faces, no voices in the brain. What happens in the brain is mainly the electrical activity in terms of action potentials, as well as frequency of electrical activity and various neuroelectric networks. This is a simple example from Mark Soames' recent book. This is the time scale. At point 0, there is a flash of light or a sensory stimulus, and about 20 neurons are being observed, one after the other, about 20 times. And you can see that before the stimulus, there is a background resting potential, resting activity, which is kind of occasional action potential. And the resting frequency is about 6 hertz or 6 cycles per second. After the flash of light, you can see the brain responds to it. You can see it's like a raindrop, like a rain, heavy rain, with all these action potentials. And if you look at the frequency, it becomes 30 hertz. The EEG frequencies can vary anywhere from 0.1 hertz to 100 hertz or even more. We have to decipher from this what it means, what pattern it is, and what that pattern means in terms of voice, image, experience, thought, etc. There have been many models of consciousness. It is still a big puzzle in neuroscience. One of the latest models that I came across just this morning, in fact, is called the sphere model of consciousness. And in this sphere, we have 3 axes. One axis is intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, or inside and outside, or introversion, interoception and exteroception. This is the outside world, this is the inside world. Then there is the axis of time, which is past and future, and this is the present moment. And this axis is unpleasant and pleasant. So everything that we experience fits into one of these axes from moment to moment. And then the authors conceive that at the center is a place of pre-existence, but that is not active at this time. That is like the genes, genetic inheritance, the epigenetics, your past, everything's summarized but not active. So you're kind of primal reality or primordial reality. But there is another perspective where it says that at the center there is nothing. There is an emptiness, shunyata. Or some people may say that is the point of purnata, or Atman, Brahman, or Nirvana, that is the center. Anyway, the point is, then the authors describe minimal self and the autobiographical self or the narrative self. As human beings, since we learn to speak, we love to tell stories and we think in terms of stories all the time. So these stories, we are very active both outside as well as inside, more so inside, in fact. In fact, some people can't believe that you could stop talking or thinking inside. But of course, when we listen to both authors and we look at the literature on shamatha, vipassana, Vedic meditation, Upanishadic statements, all that clearly tells us there is a profound stillness, silence, and serenity at the very center of our being. Another interesting paper that I came across, these authors looked at shamatha, then transcendental meditation, and also stillness meditation. And what they are saying that at the very center of our being is this silence or quietness. Call it shunyata, spontaneous silence, quietness, atma bhav, whatever you want to call that. Beyond that, on the bandbow is no thoughts, no sounds, no other disturbances. Beyond that is calm, ease, peacefulness, emptiness, nothingness, little or no mental activity, mental rest, stillness. Beyond that is bliss, joy, happiness, goodness, security, contentment, simplicity. And beyond that is conscious wakefulness, awakeness, attentional stability, attentional vividness, and the experience. So, if we consider this as the source of our being, then journey this way will be going out, which is pravrutti, and journey coming back to the very source of our being is nivrutti. As the famous saying in Yoga Sutra is, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So that Nirodha, you get rid of all these superficial layers and get to the very central silence, quietness, and bliss. Merker has done beautiful work in terms of neuroscience. What he's saying is that we are, of course, embodied and embedded in natural and human world. The attentional vector creates and specifies the subject-object duality. And the attentional matrix is a holistic, universal background of reality. And he posits an ego center in the middle, then the body, then the world, motor sequels, and sensory preliminaries, brain, body, world. Now, he also projects that at the very center of our head, the skull, is a vantage point, the central perspective of all attended experiences. This vantage point at the center of the head, controlling our gaze, the way we move our eyes to the left or right, up or down, similarly turning the head to the left or right, or up or down, whole body movements, sound perception, voice production, and initiating bodily movements. Then he proposes a decision triangle at the midbrain level. And this decision triangle receives input, all the sensory input from the body. It integrates it. It has a feeling about it, and it makes a decision, conscious decision, based on all that input. And this is what he calls the decision triangle. What is interesting, if you look through one eye, for example, here in the look, you can see the part of the nose, the eyebrow, and this is, of course, a drawing looking through one eye. But in Merker's article, what he's saying, this is the bridge of the nose, Bhrumadhya, and about 5 centimeters behind that is the midbrain, the superior colliculus, periaquedural gray, and this is the area where there is a sort of decision-making triangle of these crucial structures, which are extremely important. If these structures are damaged, one cannot be conscious, one cannot be even alive. So this is a very critical area in the upper brainstem or midbrain. Then he talks about the sensory world. The sensory world. And sensory world, what is interesting, that this area not only receives information about vision, audition, somesthetic, but even gravity, vibrations, electroception, magnetoception. And then the periaqual gray has the homeostatic action, motivation. And then that controls our movement of the eyes, head, and the body. And we respond to it depending upon an integrated perception of the current situation. The reticular activating system is an extremely powerful, it's like the central powerhouse in the midbrain. And it also has this pontine reticular formation, which is the excitatory or anti-gravity. It makes your head and neck go up. And this is a medullary reticular nuclei, which inhibits the anti-gravity muscles. It is the anti-gravity muscle of the whole body that enables an elephant or any animal to stand on its hind legs. The regulation of emotion and empathy. There are several neurotransmitters involved. This is the medulla, this is pons, this is midbrain. This is called the tectum, which is superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, and this is tegmentum. And these areas then provide electrical stimulation to the whole cortex. Whole cortical activity depends on this big powerhouse in the brainstem and the reticular activating system. This is hypothalamus, this is pituitary gland. There is a sort of nested hierarchy starting all the way from medulla, pons, midbrain, then basal ganglia, and then the cortex. It's an amazing coordination which is involved in decision-making and action selection. These are the three main levels of reticular activating system: medullary reticular formation, pontine reticular formation, mesencephalic reticular formation, and then intrathalamic nuclei, and then the cortex. Each level has very complex functions depending upon its connections, including the appreciation of our face, movements of eyes, swallowing, speaking, listening. All these functions depend on the integrity of the reticular activating system in the brainstem. At the cortical level, there is maps, various maps, including visual map, which is called retinotopy, then the touch and bodily map, depending upon the use of the organs, how useful and how frequently they are used. This is somatotopy. Then the odor map in this area. There is tonotopy, which is hearing map in this area, depending on the frequency of sound, including our own voice. And this is the visual map. So everything is very interestingly organized, very complex. Then there are functionally specific cortical areas for hearing, smell, voice, motor control, touch and pressure, taste, body awareness, comprehension of voice, reading, vision, face recognition. So there are broad networks that are involved in it. But brain is very adaptable, it's very plastic. If one area is damaged, the other areas can take over that function, especially if the damage occurs in younger age. There is also social perception, how we perceive others. Because a lot of our human beings are, of course, social animals. So a lot of our interactions, including both physical as well as mental, depends on our interactions with others. There are motor neuron systems as mirror neuron systems. This one is one, frontal mirror neuron, then parietal mirror neuron, which is sensory. In the frontal mirror neuron system, we imitate gestures and words and other things, what others are doing, performing. In this area, we imitate their expressions or perceptions. So sensory part. And this is, we guess what is going on in the other person's mind. Here we sense movement, if somebody is moving or running or acting. And this is motion perception. And we recognize the face. So all these complex functions depend on networks. Our brain, one of the main areas that has evolved very highly in human beings, is what is called the prefrontal cortex. This prefrontal cortex in the cat, dog, rhesus monkey, chimp, and the human being. Prefrontal cortex is very special in the sense it integrates the information from the rest of the brain, and it integrates what is the memory also, including working memory, long-term memory, intermediate memory. It takes into consideration what the situation is, what the current situation is, and then makes an appropriate decision. This is like the superego or the supervisor or the executive of the human behavior. The working memory is processed in this dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is more like the emotional part. The self-monitoring and judgment occurs in anterior cingulate gyrus, and the emotional regulation happens in this medial prefrontal cortex. The posterior cingulate cortex and the precuneus are involved in historical self, our autobiographical self. Now, all these complex functions are very well orchestrated, and we are hardly aware of this complexity of our motivation, evaluation, regulation, self-organization. Here we have to consider that circadian control and instincts are always there. Sleep and wake cycle depends on light and darkness. All life on earth depends on this solar energy and also the light-dark cycle. Then there is orchestration of emotions, motivatory system, pleasure, reward, internal body states, motivation and judgment, appreciation of pleasure and beauty, and the voluntary control, which is mainly in the prefrontal cortex. I have thought about 7 A's of consciousness, which is arousal, awareness, attention, agency, affect, action, and awakening. Arousal is extremely basic. Without that, one cannot even be awake, and the arousal depends on an intact brainstem, hypothalamus, etc. Awareness is the next, where we become aware or conscious, then attention, attentional vector, then our sense of agency or being, affect, which is our emotion or passion, and then selection of action, and finally awakening is becoming completely free of the burden of the past and the future and the burden of our ego, being selfless. In the same way, I thought of the consciousness as 7 A's, then I thought of self as 7S, still, silent, serene, selfless, meaning egoless, singular, because it is oneness, unity, symmetrical and synchronous. There is timelessness. And nirvana, I called it 7 C's: calm, clear, composed, content, compassionate, cheerful, and creative. So nirvana doesn't mean you just sit with eyes closed and be in bliss and do nothing. In fact, nirvana means you are completely at ease with yourself and at home in the world, and you actively participate in both your individual life as well as collective life, and try to solve problems, try to become creative, try to help the world as a whole to achieve peace and tranquility. This moment of insight has been studied electrophysiologically, and the exact moment of, say, solving some sort of problem, whether it is a verbal or mathematical problem, this red trace is where the solution was found and there was an insight. Blue trace when there was no insight. And you can see this happened about 3 seconds after the problems. And this region of the brain called the anterior part of the temporal lobe becomes activated. So this has been demonstrated by functional MRI, exact moment of insight. Similarly, at that particular moment, we have a flash of gamma activity, high frequency, which is 30 to 90 hertz or cycles per second EEG activity during this period, if you have come up with a solution. There are both Mark Soames and Panksepp have done enormous work, and what they are showing that the brain-mind relationship, it is nested. Sorry. I need to go back. So the nested hierarchy of primary, secondary, tertiary conscious process. The primary process is in the brainstem, midbrain and the hypothalamus. And we have the primary feelings like seeking, rage, fear, lust, care, panic, grief, and play. So some positive feelings, some negative feelings. The negative feelings are in the dorsal aspect of the periaqueductal gray. The positive feelings are in the ventral part. And this primary process is always going on. That is actually being alive. You always have some feeling of being existing, being alive. And this primary process of emotion affects is deeply subcortical. Then the secondary process comes. And finally, the tertiary process, which is mainly cognitive or thinking. So the thinking part is on the surface. Then this is the middle part, and the lower part or the primary part is mainly emotional or affective. Mark Solms used Freud's famous tripartite model of conscious, preconscious, and unconscious psyche. This was the original model of Freud. This is id, or the unconscious. This is ego, preconscious. This is conscious, and this is superego. Mark Solms mapped those areas in the upper brainstem, limbic system as the id. Then this becomes the ego, and this blue area is the superego. Interestingly, there is an area, what are called the pleasure areas in the brain, in the striatum, especially a nucleus called nucleus accumbens. That is the nucleus which gets activated or by any kind of pleasurable experience. When you win a lottery, for instance, or you see a beautiful face, or you see a lovely sports car, listen to pleasant music, enjoy a joke, or be in romantic love, all that activates this area of the brain called striatum, also called nucleus accumbens. The same region can also be activated by just spontaneous smiling and laughing. Even intentional smiling and laughing will also activate the same neural circuit. Hopefully, it will become more spontaneous and often. It is a great way to release tension and anxiety. In fact, one of the simplest things that helps me is to pause for a moment, breathe out, and then smile and laugh. Because that is what is called Hasya Yoga, and that itself can make you feel joyous and happy. Mark Solms actually in his book talks about road to nirvana. Nirvana, of course, is also samadhi, ego transcendence, perfect bliss, inner peace, sthita prajna, self-content. In psychiatric literature, it's called eudaimonia. That means complete well-being, humaneness, being truly human, godliness, oceanic or sky-like feeling. And then he uses the terms unconscious, but unconscious somehow is, of course, that was originally used by Freud, and it still continues to be used in the psychiatric circles. But I prefer the term like preconscious, arousal energy, subconscious action patterns, spontaneous homeostatic feeling, intentional or voluntary thinking, and then spontaneous or effortless being. This is his model of what he calls feeling homeostasis. There is a sort of set point here, which is the ideal, just like a thermostat, ideal temperature, optimal temperature, or ideal ananda sthiti or nirvana sthiti. But it is never like that. Many times there is a big gap between our expectations and reality. So there is a negative feeling, unpleasure, and then we have to come back to the positive feeling. We have to return to the set point or nirvana. This is what he calls the feeling homeostasis. It is also sthita prajna, loving presence, ease of living, feeling at ease with self and at home in the world, sense of unity or oneness, and it is harmonious living, life in nature, harmonious. So thank you for your attention. Even the birds have their own way of expressing their love. these birds, these are cardinal couple. They come at our deck at the back, and I put some seeds and they feed each other. And I think it's so wonderful to see all life has these fundamental basic emotions, and we need to appreciate that. Now, if I have time, I'm willing to show the brain model, but I'm not sure if I have time or not.
Go for it.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, that's nice. So this is the human model. This is what my brain will look like, or basically looks like. Every human brain looks like this. And we are going to do little surgery on this model to show you the inside structures. One point I want to make is that we have a skull cap. Now the skull cap and the whole skull is usually a very closed cavity. It's a closed cavity, and the contents within the skull or the head is incompressible. There is a doctrine called Monroe-Kelly doctrine. If you compress part of the content, it pushes the blood or the CSF out. So also it produces auditory resonance. So when we say Brahmari or Omkar, it creates resonance frequency at the center of the brain. Now let me take some of the structures out. This is part of the cortex. This inside, this is called corpus callosum, which is the connection between the two hemispheres, frontal lobe. This is the occipital lobe. I'll come to that later. This area is called insula. This is the front part of the insula. This is the back part of the insula. Most of our bodily sensations come in this area. Then this is called the brainstem. This is medulla. Spinal cord is down here. This is medulla, pons, and then the midbrain. This is called the tectum, superior colliculus, inferior colliculus. This is aqueduct of Sylvius. The aqueduct of Sylvius is a channel through which the CSF moves up and down with each heartbeat as well as with each breath. This is hypothalamus, optic chiasm, pituitary gland is here. This is caudate nucleus. This is part of the temporal lobe. This is cerebellum. Pons and cerebellum are closely connected, and they time and monitor our movements. I want to show you the inside of the brain. See? And this is the bridge of the nose. And if you go about 5 centimeters behind that, you reach the level of the brain stem, midbrain. This is the area that Merck was talking about, which he calls the selection triangle or the decision-making triangle. Mark Soames also talks about it. Panksepp talks about it. It's a very important area. And one point I want to make is that vibrations or the frequencies are extremely important. some of the neural networks in the hypothalamus, the histaminergic neurons, they vibrate at a frequency of 1 to 4 hertz or cycles per second. There is a group of neurons called locus ceruleus. Locus ceruleus means the blue nucleus. But what is so interesting about the locus ceruleus, there is one on each side of the brainstem, and our so-called nadi, Pingala and Ida nadi, they depend on the supply by the locus ceruleus, because the neurotransmitter norepinephrine is secreted by locus ceruleus. And this locus ceruleus frequency of these neurons during active wakefulness, the locus ceruleus vibrates at 2 to 15 cycles per second, 2 to 15 hertz. In quiet wakefulness, it vibrates less than 2 cycles per second. And in non-REM sleep, it is even slower than that. And in REM sleep, it is completely stops. So the activity of the locus ceruleus corresponds with our level of consciousness, our level of alertness, attentiveness. What strikes me sometimes is that frequencies are very close to what has been described in our chakra system. Like these petals that we see in Mooladhara is 4 petals, then 6 petals, 8, then 12, 16 petals. So, and then 100 petals. So it is possible that these petals, in fact, correspond with a frequency of this brainstem hypothalamic activating system. A lot more research needs to be done on this. It's a simple idea because our level of alertness, our consciousness, our awareness depends on this hierarchical organization of the brainstem, hypothalamus, and thalamocortical system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deshmukh.
Thank you.
So really thank you all three of you for the wonderful presentation. If you